Hello. Today we'll be talking about the Jesse Wells song Happy Mother's Day, which is about the fatal shooting of Roger Fortson, which is an incident that I believe went largely overlooked in the media. I did first hear about it when it first happened, but anything after that I did not hear about. And I feel like most people didn't as well. I know when I was researching for this video, everyone I talked to did not know who I was talking about. And then I kind of explained the situation and they're like, oh yeah, I heard about that. So maybe you will be one of those people right now. So what had happened was that the Okaloosa County Deputy Eddie Duran was alerted to a domestic disturbance in apartment 1401. And when they arrived there was a woman that lived in the apartment building that claimed she heard yelling, shouting, and a slap noise from that apartment 2 weeks before this incident, like before they actually showed up to the apartment. And she told them that. And so they went to go and check that apartment because, let's be clear here as well, they were answering a domestic disturbance at this time, but they weren't aware which apartment it was coming from. That's why this woman told them this apartment number that she had heard noises from earlier, although many argue that she was unfairly racially profiling the Roger Fortson who lived in this apartment. We don't know if she actually heard anything. She could have totally just been lying and didn't like them, or maybe she did hear stuff like that, but she wouldn't have said something otherwise or wouldn't thought much of it because I'm sure lots of people have heard couples arguing before, and you don't alert the cops because there's no real threat. People argue. And so Eddie Duran came to the door, and the girlfriend of Roger Fortson claimed she was on the phone with him at the time, and that the officer did not announce that he was the police, and that he was just banging at the door. And so Roger Fortson believed it was a home invader, and so he got his weapon, he got his gun, and he was aiming it down when he answered the door. So he wasn't aiming it at Eddie Duran, but he did have a weapon. And like I said, he claims on that phone call that he believed it was a home invader because they did not announce that they were a police officer. And he was a senior airman. So I feel like if he thought it was a police officer, that if they went through the correct channels to properly announce themselves, he would know not to get his gun. He would know better than that. And so when he opened the door, Eddie Duran immediately shot him 5 times and did not say anything to him before this. He said stuff like get down and drop your weapon after he had already shot him. So that's not very helpful. And at the time of the song being released, the shooter was not identified and was put on paid administrative leave, which is the standard protocol for when police officers are being investigated for things like this, which is just disgusting. And so that's where the lines and the Okaloosa sheriff's gonna hide in the weeds of chaos and information and the cops on vacation, because he shot a man, he killed a man, and they gave him vacation days basically for it while they investigated it, paid vacation. And many believed that it would kind of stay that way because that's often how instances like this occur. Many is that the police officer remains unidentified in the media, and then their consequences tend to be extremely minimal, and they're put on paid administrative leave, and they might have like some sort of probation for their job and all that sort of thing. But usually the consequences for police officers breaking the law is not what it would be for a normal civilian. They're not put to that standard that the rest of us are. Fortunately, this one did end up getting punished a little bit more than they typically tend to be. So he was later identified as, I've mentioned his name several times, Eddie Duran, and then he was fired and charged with manslaughter, and that's an ongoing trial. And so we don't know what'll end up happening with that quite yet. So that's to be determined. But I feel like, honestly, this song still works with the context of, like, how people thought this would turn out. And I feel like that's very important, too. Because people didn't believe that he would be fired. People didn't believe that he would actually be charged with manslaughter. People thought he would largely get away with it. And so I feel like that's important because the public has such a low expectation for what our justice system is going to do when police officers, politicians, etc., people who are supposed to protect us break the law. They are not held to the same regard. We expect that, and that's terrible. That's what we expect. But sadly, time and time again, we tend to be proven right about these things. So this one is an outlier, I feel. And so even though, like, the song you might say is a bit outdated with some of its lines in regards to that, I feel like it still works because, it reflects the mindset and the overall injustice of when police officers commit crime, not necessarily just this specific crime. And then the lines, this ain't Fallujah, this is Florida, it ain't Black Hawk Down, I feel like is important to mention because it's kind of comparing to when the American government commits other atrocities in foreign nations. And now, government organizations or the government can commit them at home, which one's not better than the other, but it's almost kind of like an expectation of one. You should feel safe in your own country, and if you are going to get victimized in your own country, the last people that should do it are the government and government agencies. And for some context, if you didn't know, Fallujah is a city in Iraq that faced so many different instances and massacre after massacre and just horrible shit. Specifically, I'll mention in early 2003, protesters took to the streets to oppose the American government having a military base in a school in the city. And the military claims that they were shot at by these protesters. And so, as a result, they shot into the crowd, killed 17 people, and injured 70, at least. Because who knows if those numbers are 100% correct. And no American casualties were reported, and Fallujah at the time, at least I do not know about currently, but at the time of this incident, had no military presence of their own. So, don't really know how there could be no American casualties and no military force present, but they shot first. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so, that's just kind of one instance of what happened in Fallujah. And so I think it's just comparing the bold actions of the American government to the police, which is a governmental agency that is supposed to reflect the greatest nation, in which he also mentions in the song, he says, Happy Mother's Day from the world's greatest nation, kind of as a sarcastic finishing line to just be like, this is what we do here, aren't we so great, sort of thing. Because everyone likes to say that Americans, not everybody, but Americans like to say they're the greatest country in the world, but this is what we're doing at home. How can that be? So I hope you liked my discussion of this. I, of course, didn't really add a whole lot to this one. It's a much more factual one, but I hope I educated you a little bit on this incident specifically, because I know it at least for me, in Canada, it was not overly reported, so maybe it was different in the States, or maybe it was different in Florida specifically. But yeah, be safe out there. Bye-bye.